You got your
Your
whistle this
whistle.
time?
All right, Dr. Myra, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, Ty,
Oh.
are you ready? Happy
Ready to
Monday,
fire
by the
off the
way.
line, man.
All right. Timeout. Tyler, who the heck are we taking a timeout with today?
Kevyn, good to see you, brother, up in the 585, man. We're over here in the 101 heat in Dallas, man, for about 67 more days straight. Ladies and gentlemen of the Northeast, the South, wherever you are, we have the Dr. Myra Henry, the president and CEO of YWCA of Rochester and Monroe County. Dr. Myra Henry, thanks for being on the show. We're past 100 episodes now, and I think you know what question's coming.
Yes.
So if you, I know you are WYCA, but if you could remix the song with an artist or two to remake the Village People's YMCA, who would that be?
So first of all, thanks for having me on. I'm loving the energy. I'm excited to get into this conversation. And Tyler, I feel like, we were chatting a few minutes before we got started here, and I think we're old friends now, right? So I'm going to say this. It's the YWCA. No shade to the Village People. I remember the song. I know all the moves, right? However, because I work with the YWCA, it is important that you all remember the power is in the W. So I wouldn't have that song remade. It is a classic. I would, however, highlight Shaka Khan's song, I Am Every Woman.
Ooh. All right, I am giddy for this conversation today. Coming out strong.
I was going to go with like 50 Cent and Lady Gaga. Okay, keep going, Kev.
No, this is fantastic. So I got to ask, coffee or tea?
Tea, but a cold tea drinker. I don't drink coffee.
Okay. And
it all tastes like
is
bitter.
soup a meal or is it an appetizer?
Is soup a meal or an appetizer? For me, it's a meal, but if it's done right, it could be a palate cleanser. But for me, it's a meal.
Okay. All right. My
if
last
it's heavy,
one.
it's for sure a meal. If it's cream, you got that cream going, it's like I get bloated real quick. I was telling Kevin last night, I drank a lot of whole milk and I could not move for a long while. And Dr. Myra, how about you get into this I can't remember the name of this orange, but will you reflect a little bit on this orange you got going on with the lamp and the shirt?
Yeah. So part of our national movement at the YWCA, and remember, right, the power's in the W. You all will get that once you in the recording. You'll go, oh, now I see where the power's coming from. So our national movement, the color is persimmon. It is a shade of orange, and a persimmon is a fruit. But there is power in that color. It's empowering. It is exciting, right? You think about the sunrise and the sunsets and those powerful colors of orange and yellow that we get from the sun when it is rising and setting. And that gives us energy to start our day and end our day in peace.
Dr. Myra, I kid you not, I just changed my running shoes from like a royal blue and sky blue to like a fire orange and a fire yellow. And I kid you not, it does something to me energy wise. Yes. And I'm not trying to be like Mike over here, like seeing those compared to the like passive blue and like sky blue. I don't know. I think you're onto something there, Myra.
For sure.
I love it. And I think like the sunrise and the sunset, it kind of is speaking or indicative of today is not final and tomorrow's never promised, but tomorrow's a new day, and make the most of it today. What's one quote that if you could put up on 490 or 390 or even as a bumper sticker on your car, what are some words that you would love for everybody to read, to start their day or to end their day to that point?
Yeah. So I was actually meditating recently on Dr. Maya Angelou's quote, and we've all heard it, right? People will forget what we say. People will forget what we do, but people will always remember how we make them feel. And that is so real. That's how I show up to work every day. I want to try my best to make people feel their best and feel the best from me. And words of my own that I live by and I've instilled in my children is if we do what we're supposed to do, we can do most of what we want to do. So that's a personal mantra of mine. If I do what I'm supposed, if I take care of what I'm supposed to, I can do most of what I want to do.
And what is something that, like, is this something that you even saw? I mean, to even see yourself, you came from academia, right? And now, like, that the dean of a school, and now you're running an organization, right? Like, was this even something that you even saw, or were you discovering what strengths and passion and maybe gifts that you were given to lead you to this point? Can you talk about that journey at all? Maybe it was a self-discovery, maybe it was an enlightening moment for you, but
Or
how did
maybe
you make this?
somebody pulled me real hard and
Yeah,
pushed me.
how did it happen? Let's hear it.
So I was an assistant dean in the school, the one higher education system. And when I went back for my doctorate degree, I knew I entered into that work and that study with the intention of coming out working in service of others. But quite frankly, I thought that was going to be in higher education, right? Working perhaps in an office of minority student affairs, in an office of equity and inclusion, something like that. I thought I would retire in higher ed. And I had a trusted mentor and sponsor who brought this opportunity to my attention. And to be quite honest, I didn't, as many of us do, we talk ourselves out of it. And I thought, Myra and the words president and CEO in the same sentence, I'm not feeling it. And this particular mentor circled around again and said, hey, what are you going to do with that? He pulled my coattail. And although at the moment I couldn't see it for myself, I had trust in my mentor who had trust and faith in me. And I blindly said, okay, let me try this. Let me see what this looks like. I have the schooling, I have the experience, I have the body of work to speak to the changes that I've instilled in many organizations. Let me throw my hat in. And the rest is history. We're here. And I'm glad I did. It is actually one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Well, I'm just sitting up in my seat because this is the part of and Tyler will tell you, Kevin has been on this deep dive, right? And the words worthiness is a big one, right? And I just heard that, right? It took a mentor and a sponsor, somebody that knew you externally and what it was like to be you or on the other side of you, right? To see it in you, something that you couldn't even see in yourself. And I was going to ask you, like, because now stepping in, you were deputy before, but now you are the face, right? The buck stops with you. There is no hiding behind anybody else. How have you fought back those demons of the imposter syndrome? Because it also sounds like now you're like, well, I have the proof. I have done it. Somebody else saw it. Now I believe it. When did you go from self-awareness to self-acceptance and then into that worthiness category where you are now owning this and running with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So honestly, it was through the interview process because I was hired during COVID. So the whole process was on Zoom, right? There were folks, I had members on the interview committee and on the board that I was probably 6-8 months in before I even met them in person. And through that journey, COVID allowed us to hide a lot. So you know what, if this does become a video, people will see I'm a Black woman. I don't shy away from that, right? In case it stays as audio, I want folks to understand I'm a Black woman. And for many times I'd have my hair in protective styles, so in braids or with extensions and things like that. But through the interview process, I chose to take my hair down and show up to the final interview in my natural hair. And I'm talking when my hair is down, it is Jackson 5 Afro puff. Okay. Michael Jackson, 1978. I'm going to give you the visual. And I love it, love every inch of it. However, I recognize that everyone may not be accepting of that. And it was during that moment, that transformation, when I made that decision to show up on Zoom screen with an afro, that I made the decision. This board of directors has to be confident in knowing that their CEO might show up at a press conference or somewhere in the community with an afro and afro puffs. And if they're not comfortable with it on the Zoom screen, they need to know it before they hire me. So that was the moment of acceptance for me, that I could walk in who I am, the work that I've done, and truly walk into my truth of who I am as a leader in this community.
That is awesome. I mean, from right that then you could be yourself. There ain't nothing else.
Absolutely.
Probably back in your Zeta Phi days, if I had to guess. Is that right?
So Zeta Phi Beta, yes, yes, yes. I am. I needed to know my Zeta Y to join my sorority, and part of it is authenticity and me being true to who I am.
That's pretty dang cool, Dr. Myra. How important to you is it to have a mentor?
I think no matter where you are within an organization or even in your life, I think it's important to have mentors and identify those folks appropriately, right? Mentors, sponsors, and coaches, because they all serve a different role in our lives, right? That mentor who's going to pull your coattail, straighten your crown if it's crooked, kind of point you in the right direction and really give you some good guidance on wherever you are in your life and where you want to be. Those coaches that's going to kick you in your butt right when you feel like I can't do it, but really show you the way, and help you think out loud and process out loud where you are. That's the role of a coach, right? To ask those powerful questions and allow you to think and wander out loud. And then those sponsors, those folks that are going to clear the pathway and use their collateral, use their social capital to say, hey, you may not know this person here, but I'm telling you right now, Myra's a cool chick. You need to get, she's good at what she does. You need to give her a chance.
Isn't that the funniest thing? That's like half the battle of life. It's like, just tell him Tyler's not a weirdo,
Yes.
That gets you a long way. It's not the accolades or anything. It's like this person is okay, I promise. And I can't thank like people like Kevin and others that have just reached out, for myself.
Straighten your crown when it's a little crooked, and I loved how you said that. It is because most people don't find themselves worthy. We're always fighting to feel like we're being listened to, valued, heard, seen, understood, right? That sense of belonging, and knowing that we're making a difference. And I think a lot of the things that you just said is so important. And I think having those types of individuals, because we can be our own worst critic at times, we can be much harder on ourselves than that was me. I was so hard on myself, but I was so easy on everybody else, how have you found yourself battling those demons when you stepped into your truth, right? So going in, you basically said, I don't want this job if you're going to fall in love with the person that I'm pretending to be. So let me take off that mask and I'm not going to pretend anymore. And now if you love me and choose me for me, then I'm going to run through a brick wall for you. What is your daily intention right now, Dr. Myra? Like, what is that thing that you're telling yourself in the mirror as soon as you're putting your feet in your slippers in the morning? Like, what is that daily intention that you're, as a leader today, as you continue to step into this, you're overly qualified for, right? And we thought that we weren't qualified at all.
Yeah. So qualified indeed, called and qualified for sure.
I love that.
That's for sure. And the intention that I wake up with and remind myself of every day is two things. One, the mission of my organization and the people that I serve. I come to work every day in service of others. And I remind myself and am reminded that provision follows purpose. So as long as I'm walking in my purpose, as I walk and work in service of others, then the right provision, things will be provided for us. The doors of opportunity will open up that we didn't see, that we knew we could walk through. Power to stand in spaces that we didn't know we had power to stand into. Courage to use our voice in a way that perhaps we never used it before. But that's real, and I'm reminded of that every day.
But that courage and bravery starts with you, right? Yeah. So it is loving yourself. It is finding yourself worthy. It is identifying your strengths and also your weaknesses, but celebrating your imperfections. Because I hear a leader that's going to get out of the way, right? I hear a leader that's going to listen. I hear a leader that's more called to the greater mission than personal accolades. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How do you build a team? How have you found it effective to build a team, a collaborative team, to almost get out of their way to see what doors are available? What doors am I missing? What doors have we missed before? Like how did you get yourself comfortable and your team comfortable with this collaborative environment that you're
Yeah.
creating?
So, for sure. So yeah, I am the leader. There's no question of that, right? As you said, the buck stops with me. I am not confused about that, and I do not abdicate that responsibility at all. However, I am a relational leader. So it is important for my team to know that I'm walking alongside you while I'm walking ahead of you.
Hmm.
So two things can exist at the same time. And as the leader, I am the head of the organization, but I'm also, in relation with you as we work towards the same mission.
I love that.
Yeah. And I was going to chime in. Do you think like the tool of helping like with that imposter syndrome or not feeling good enough? Do you ever feel that if you just focus on these 24 hours, that kind of eliminates that? I think when I start projecting a little into the future, it's like, oh hell,
Well,
and then if I just reel it back, it's kind of like me and Kevin just read Matthew McConaughey's book, and he kind of realized what's in front of him is all he has, kind of thing. And I don't know, I find it, Dr. Myra, that if I just focus on right now, leader, no leader, whatever, servant, it doesn't really matter as long as I'm tackling what's right in front of me.
That's it. 24, even to look 24 hours ahead is too much.
I know. I was just
Right?
gonna say the
Sometimes
same. I still get myself in
right.
trouble with that. Even
everything is but one moment in time. And that's at some days, that's all you can deal with is the moment in time and be present in that moment in time. And that's not always a crisis, right? Because yes, when we're in crisis, we have to deal with that crisis in that moment in time. But sometimes it's even just being with self. Let me just deal with me in this moment in time, because another moment is going to come along and I may have to show up differently in the next moment, but each moment in time.
I love that. And something that somebody shared with me is like keeping your feet or keeping your head where your feet are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And is not getting too high, because I think back to that presence, right? And I think back to that, maybe the intention or the mission that you're now sharing with that internal team allows you guys to be more present in the moment, to see those opportunities that maybe you haven't seen before. And until I went through coaching, until I went through therapy, until I went and did that self work that you talked about, it never made sense to me, because I was in the same rooms, the same conversations, listening to the same thing, but hearing something entirely different, because it was what my mindset was and what I was almost looking for. And if it was a negative script, then I was always looking for what's wrong versus what's right. And I think like just hearing how you're saying is we're showing up differently. Now we're absolutely stepping into our truth, but also that power, that encourage, enablement, and empowerment piece that you're talking about, that gets goosebumps, right? Because now it's different. It's not work. Now it's
Right.
transcendent. But you sound like a woman of faith. Do you lean on God? Because I hear you throwing up your problems. I hear you throwing up your challenges, and that's something that I stopped doing. I thought he could read my mind, right? So I stopped verbalizing it. But it sounds like you're having daily conversations where you're voicing this. Is that true?
Yeah. So I'm a strong woman of faith. That is a pillar and a cornerstone of my life, who God is in my life, and how and the fact that I have a personal relationship with God. So being able to go to God not only with my problems, but also with my aspirations, right? With what I want to see, that manifestation, manifesting progress and success and all of those things. I believe that comes from God as well, right? There's a scripture that in the Bible that says that God he'll give you the desires of your heart. Well, I also believe that he places those desires in us to do better, to want more, to be kinder people, to all of those things that I think that God has his hand in, for us to be better humans. But if I may, I want to go back just a second into something that you all said in terms of the moment in time, right? What we were chatting about. If we don't take care of the moment in time that we're in right now, we're also going to miss the opportunity to celebrate. And I love a good party. So we want to make sure that we celebrate, right, along our successes and our wins along the way as well.
How have you gotten good at that? Right? Because if my worthiness was a low bucket, right, and self-worth very low and self-accept, so I didn't want to celebrate. And it was always like the next thing. And then Tyler and I talked about the journey, right? Embrace the journey, because the journey is really where the learning and the fun is. And we kind of set this destination, and we think that destination is going to bring us happiness or satisfaction. And it's almost underwhelming when we actually get that achievement. But I stink at celebrating self. How did you get good at it? I love a good party too, but that party just can't be for me because that makes me uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah, I actually, I think that comes from my childhood, right? My parents would take us on road trips. I grew up here in the Northeast. We would go to road trips to the South and visit family. And it's a long way from New York to Florida in a car. It's a long way. And my dad would celebrate the mile markers. He taught me at an early age how to read a map and how to read the road signs and what the little markers on the side of the road meant. And we would read the mile markers, and that would celebrate the mile markers that we're 1 mile closer to our journey. So I'm very intentional about setting mile markers with my team, with the staff, as well as with myself, and celebrating those mile markers. Because if we wait for the journey, all of us may not make it to the end. And I don't mean that in a morbid way,
Yeah.
Somebody may win the lottery and decide, hey, this is it for me. So we have to celebrate the mile markers along the way.
I love that. I love that.
It's a little hilarious you said that, Dr. Myra. When we moved from up there down back to Texas, I did hour markers. And I was in a car, and my wife was in a car, and every hour I'd call her. I'd be like, 17 hours! And she's like, are you going to do this the whole way? I was like, absolutely. You got to stay engaged somehow. That's right. And when Kevin was talking about, the end or the goal is pretty underwhelming, sometimes compared to like the struggles. And I always tell people the journey's where the laughs are, like messing up during the way is kind of funny once you get there. If you have a blow up in the car, whatever the case may be, or in business, or something just goes really, really weird. It's I don't know. I think we grow a lot in that time, and we're also dang anxious. I think to get there and to cut some corners and not really, because when you're doing the real day to day, it's that feeling in your chest. It's like, man, I'm in it, and I'm doing it right because I feel like this right now. Is kind of my experience and some others. But I was going to ask you, can you kind of dive a little bit into YWCA's mission, vision, and oh man, I was trying to steal Kevin's line there. Mission, vision, and something. Yeah. What is it? And values.
Yeah.
Talking like Kevin's, but I tried.
Yeah, so the YWCA, our mission is to eliminate racism and empower women in peace and social justice for all. And what many people don't know or realize that the YWCA actually is a worldwide movement. So there are YWCAs all around the world. Here domestically, there are 198 YWCAs across the country, from Washington, D.C. to Hawaii. There are 19 YWCAs in New York State, and there are 6 in Western New York, so from Rochester to Jamestown. And we all work towards that mission, responding to the needs of the community. So what does that look like, right? For YWCA of Rochester and Monroe County, that looks like responding to the needs of housing for women and their families, community engagement and outreach. So we have a housing continuum that includes a homeless shelter, addiction recovery, long-term housing, and support for victims or survivors of domestic violence. And then we also have a very robust community engagement and resource center that connects us to community. And we have some programming, some educational programming, leadership training, and things like that, that all speak to the fullness of our mission. Everything we do is undergirded by those words to eliminate racism and empower women. And we've been here in Rochester, we've been doing it for 140 years. So we're pretty good at it.
Well, and Dr. Myra, I get like a little confused, like when I see stuff like this is an amazing initiative, right? Can you give me like the day-to-day on what it looks like? Like I'm a third grader.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me break it down. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Because every time I see something like this, I'm like, amazing. And I'm like, I wonder what that even looks like.
Yes. So other YWCAs, it may look different. And I
Okay.
would just say, if you were to talk to one of my YW sisters across New York State, one of them, their main focus may be childcare or early education. So it looks very different across each organization, but we're all working towards the same mission. We respond to the needs of the women, girls, and families in the community at the time that we're in. And right now in Rochester, the way that looks for the YWCA of Rochester is through housing. So we have 3 emergency shelters. Quite literally, we house unhoused women and families. We have shelters, 1 shelter for individual women. And it's not what you see, right? I think media and television has us thinking that a homeless shelter is a big gymnasium with cots just lined up one after the other. That's not what our shelter is like. Our shelter are really like dorm rooms or hotel rooms where women can come and stay and help. And we have case management services that work with them. They have life plans, and we provide shelter so that they and support so that they can get their lives back on track. We're not concerned with why a person is unhoused. That doesn't matter. We answer and meet them where they are right now. And that starts our continuum. We also have addiction recovery, in residence addiction recovery, where women can stay with us up to 18 months. And what's unique about our addiction recovery program is that they're allowed to have their children with them, because we recognize that when there's someone suffering from addiction in a family, it doesn't just impact that one person. It impacts the whole family. So we work with the whole family. And then we also have long-term housing where we have women who are aging in place. These are the grandmas in my building, right? That where the wisdom comes from, and little old ladies on walkers that'll tell you to get out the way in no uncertain terms. So we support those women as well as they're aging in place. So that's what it looks like. And that support comes from our case management services.
Wow. And do you guys normally have beds available? Because I know it's a son of a gun, trying to find a bed in like addiction and another few spots that you talked about.
Yeah, we have waiting lists throughout our programs. As a matter of fact, we just this morning broke ground on a construction project, a renovation project to expand our emergency housing shelters for families. So we have a new dwelling that we purchased about a year ago, and it's going under extensive rehab right now, and it'll provide 12 more units of family housing for unhoused families.
Wow. If you could like wave your magic wand, what would the number be to hit to take care of everybody in Rochester that has a problem like this, would you say?
Yeah, I think even if I had a magic wand, I don't know if I could hit that number, but what I would do with that wand is pull all of us together to work collaboratively, because, the YWCA isn't the only game in town doing this work, but making sure that we're working closely with our partners so that we do hit that number, to make sure folks are properly housed, that they get the support services that they need, that there's no food insecurity and the like.
I got a question for you. There's so many questions I have for you, but I think you just touched on the biggest one, right? So I went through Leadership Rochester. I heard right from a number of nonprofits working towards the same thing.
What class are you?
What last 2023?
Oh, so I was
the
class
best
of
class, I guess,
no.
is what I also learned that I had to say and throw in if I told you what year I am. But we were a decent class. I'll say that we were a good class. But to that point, that was the biggest disconnect. And I loved like your mission, right? We meet them where they are now and where now, right? It sounds like the YWCA, and maybe it's your practice within the community, but it sounds like you're not telling the community what they need. It sounds like you're listening to the community and asking what they need, and then meeting them in this very not us versus them or a vertical relationship, right? You are more horizontally focused, right? You're seeing them as equals. You're seeing as something's missing, and let's understand, how do we go upriver or upstream? How do we catch this before it becomes an issue or a challenge? So I love it, right? Because I think then that's what you said is just right here in New York, we have 6 other agencies in business. And Tyler and I joke about this quite frequently. We overcomplicate business, right? We want to implement a process because then I can put my name on it and I can take recognition and receive the awards for what we accomplish thereafter. The nonprofit, everybody gets in for the purpose, right? Everybody gets in for the mission, but very few, that mission is either seen or it's communicated back to them effectively. So then it just becomes a job, just like everybody else is working a job. How do you continue to keep your team engaged within the mission? Because a lot of this work is done on the front end. A lot of it takes time, and they're not always able to see those mile markers. Can you talk to me about those mile markers that you're setting with your team as you march towards this very big mission that you have?
Absolutely. Well, for the record, I am Leadership Rochester class 2012. So
which is the best, I assume. Yes.
Is that a known thing?
Yeah. It's a thing. But in all seriousness, this is a we thing. This is not a me thing. And I do not, I make sure that it's understood and throughout my organization that this is a we thing. And what that looks like is me, making myself accessible, making sure the staff that work here know who I am and I know who they are. And reminding them that we're all working towards the same goal. And that is, to be in service of others, right? And working towards our mission. And then what that looks like, and which is very, very important to me, is making sure that from a leadership lens, that I am very intentional about making sure we're pouring back into our staff, to make sure our staff are not pouring from an empty cup, because the work they do is very hard, right? Through the pandemic, we never closed. We kept our doors open and we responded to the crisis at the time. So then, my folks became essential workers. So making sure that they were acknowledged, honored, and compensated for their work. That's very important to me. And then, on the fun tip, what that looks like is, since I've been here, annually, we have a staff gathering out at the local amusement park, right? We give staff tickets for them and their families to come out and have a day at the water park and the amusement rides. We feed them, we give everybody a cool t-shirt, and we just come together as one organization and hang out for the day. Because I want folks replenished, because we are serving such a great need in the community.
I've heard you use terminology like my YWCA sisters. You have this, and I know it's like a catch-22, right? It's like, I'm tired of hearing of that. My work culture is like a family, right? I don't mind that definition, because I can't choose my family, just like I can't choose my coworkers in a lot of situations, right? So that idea that this love or unconditional love, whether it's to the individual or to the mission or to the culture of the business, for whatever reason that it is, I'm there for, correct, my own selfish reasons, right? But you don't strike me as a leader that shies away from celebrating emotion to build that connection. You said who I am, but also who they are. And a lot of people stop at just knowing, hey, you have kids and your name is this, and you live out in Penfield, or you live out in this area. That's where most leaders stop, and they can't understand, well, I know my employees, right? How do you build those connections? Do you lean into emotions? Do you use faith? Is it storytelling? But how do you get to that level where you really understand them and they know who you are outside of the title?
Yeah. So I think all of the above, what you just said in short. However, and I'll just add, I think somewhere in the 80s or 90s, there must have been leadership research or whatever that said you're supposed to leave all of your family things, all of your, when you get to the door, when you punch in,
leave it there.
Who you are as a mom and a wife and all of that doesn't matter. That's not true.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
I bought into that. I mean, I believe that. I definitely thought I could do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I could too, but then realized, no, I can't, right? I'm a mom, I'm a wife of four. I'm a wife and a mom of four. So it's impossible, because they make up those layers, those interconnected layers and labels, they make up who we are. Yeah. So I can't put down me being a mom no more here at work, no more than I can put down being a boss when I get home.
I love that. And not feel guilty, like, because that's where I think that guilt is, and that's where I got out of my own way, is like I would be thinking about work while at home because I was so self-aware on what I could do better that I was still missing life right in front of me.
So I don't know if it's leading into emotion or recognizing the power of vulnerability.
I love that.
And
Yep.
it's, you know, stopping, and I'll use an I statement, right? Being able to share with my team and with the staff at large, if it's a staff meeting, being willing, you know, willing to share with them, hey, you guys haven't seen me for a while because my mom has been sick, you know, or acknowledging, I had a staff member just about a week ago, she was out on leave because her mom had surgery and she had to care for her mom. It's important that I recognize, hey, you're back to work. I'm glad to see you. How's your mom doing? Right? I don't think that takes away from us as employees. I don't think it takes away from us as leaders to be a little vulnerable and let folks know that we have lives too, that we have, in life ebbs and flows. It comes and goes, and we show up appropriately for the occasion. And the expectation is when you're at work, you're doing work. And if for whatever reason, your personal life is distracting you from that, you have close enough bonds with your colleagues, your supervisors, and your leadership that you can speak to that and get support for it.
Yep. And feel safe voicing that, you know, and that's where I think that transparency and vulnerability goes both ways that leaders can't see, because otherwise they're getting the rose-colored glasses or the story that they think that the leader wants to hear, right? Oh, everything's great, you know, and like, well, something's broken because I'm not seeing this anymore. Right. And I think back to what you said is what you guys are consciously and intentionally doing is acknowledging, honoring, and celebrating, you know, and I think that doesn't happen enough in most organizations, let alone teams, because managers are so focused on that external output. You know, they're so focused on that number to achieve the grant, right? And it's like, man, now we're just a number, right? And we're all fighting saying, I hate feeling like a number, but here we are chasing a number that becomes that daily morning intentional motivation that we're using for our leadership roles and positions.
Man, I got so much over here. I don't even know where to go. You're talking about, expressing vulnerability. And I'm so blind by how powerful that is, just because I'm a pretty open book. Like, I think it's just the way life should be, but it's just so amazing when I do tell some folks about me a little bit. They like take a big deep breath and they're like, well, hell, I just got laid off, man. This happened to me 2 days ago, and just the lightness of my heart and the other person's heart. And I'll tell you what, Dr. Myra, I love leaders that tell me how bad they messed up, to be honest. It's like, thank goodness, man or woman, like now we can really have a conversation, and instead of acting like just this, I'm all about progress over perfection, and I think perfection is kind of just an excuse to not do a lot of things or to kind of branch out. And, I love doing things I'm bad at. And so, I took my father-in-law golfing a couple of weeks ago and he went at the ball. I was like, dude, it's just me out here, man. You want me to swing this thing left-handed and just top this thing? And he learned. He was like, oh, dang, okay, I could just hit the ball. Just little things like that. But you were talking about also with that magic wand, you were talking about communication and collaboration with others. How do we do that now in America? Like, because we all, no matter what you think politically or what color skin we got, we all want to be happy and not worry about what we got to order off the menu at the end of the day. How do, in your mind, you're very highly educated and you've been around, you got some wisdom, Dr. Myra. How the heck do we start that? Because it seems like there's a lot of talk about it. Yeah. Sounds great. But as a community, even right in Rochester, what's step one look like?
Yeah, I think step one is you can use our positionality, right, to call up our colleagues that do similar work. And I'm fond of, and I believe, and you all may remember, this may be something from Sesame Street from years ago, right, where you have the smorgasbord and you have the meat, you have the potatoes, I have the rice. In my mind, that's like a song. And we're all coming to, right? We're all coming together and we're bringing our expertise and our knowledge, because no one person, no one organization is good at all things for all people at all times. But we all have a piece of that pie. So if we bring our resources and our collective expertise together, and what that looks like is calling each other up, right? Looking around these tables, we all sit around these tables. We know there are community tables for this. There's a task force for that. There's a committee for this. You look around those tables, and as we're digging into the discussions, whatever the topic is, you look around and you go, whose voice is missing? Who should be at this table and they're not? And then the takeaway or the action item from that table is, and who's going to reach out to so-and-so or such and such organization to make sure their voice is here.
I love it.
That's what I think is missing. Because I think the people that we're supposedly in service of are rarely at the solution creation table, right? So, and here we are saying, well, here we got the solution to solve this, and we're not even involving them. And that's where I go back into Rochester. We have such a philanthropic town. We have programs that other places in the country can't even dream of or are currently dreaming of. Mm-hmm. So we're resource rich, but communication and information poor. Mm-hmm. So and that tells me just the same variance that I see in the day job that I do, but between an employer and an employee's expectation. It's no different. It's somebody saying that I have this perspective and I think this is the best way to do it, without confirming it with those people the closest to the problem or the challenge. How do you as a leader make sure that you are in tune with the community, with the needs in the present time? Not what was needed 2 years ago, because that target has already moved, right? But how do you stay present? How do you stay relevant within the needs of the community as they continuously change? Because just like any disease, until we solve the disease itself, and we're flirting with it here, right? Until we solve that disease, how do you get that information from the community?
Yeah, so for me and in our organization, but for me, it starts with connecting with the people that we serve, both present and past, right? Some of the most powerful affirmations of the work that we are doing have come from folks when I'm at a community event or I'm, at the grocery store, whatever, and folks see me. And one of the stories that sticks in my mind is a woman who approached me and said to me, she's an adult, successful, family of her own, doing great. And she shared with me, she says, the best night's sleep I ever had was when my mom escaped her abuser and found safety at the YWCA. And that had to have been at least 25, 30 years ago. This was a full grown woman. So those types of affirmations of our work over time, I've had the privilege of looking at some of our historical documents from, newspaper clippings from the 1800s that talk about the YWCA's work and the impact on the community, right? Those are all affirmations and foundational to give me courage to talk to the folks that we serve today, to say, are we missing the mark? What are we doing? We've had, since I've been in this seat, we've had to sunset programs because we were missing the mark. We weren't answering the need. Now, at the time the program was created, it was what was needed in the community at that time. But it would be irresponsible of me not to recognize when things have shifted, right? Not to hear the voices of the folks that we serve and say, hey, this was all right then, but really what I need is this right now. And figure out a way how to address that need or redirect them to resources that are, direct or attending to those needs now.
Golly. Kevin's on mute up there.
No, I'm just going to say it's that natural evolution, right? And I think when we are evolving, just like Charles Darwin had always said, you evolve and adapt for the new needs of the environment. It isn't this, we don't look at our community as much as we should like nature and an ecosystem. It is a true ecosystem. Yes, we're at the top of that echelon, right? And then now we have status, because now it's like, well, what do you do for a living and how much do you make? And now that goes into our food chain as Homo sapiens, right? For whatever us versus them thing that everybody likes to create. But it is truly an ecosystem that, to your point, we're all bringing things to the table. I'll bring the turkey, you bring the mashed potatoes, right? But it's understanding that we're all bringing something, and each something is worth something to listen to and value in and of itself. And I just love how you put
and
that.
I like to think of that. I like to think of that ecosystem as circular,
Correct,
as opposed to hierarchical,
correct.
right?
It's not.
It's right, or linear. It's moving, and we're
Right.
all moving within that ecosystem.
But I think
I
in
was gonna-
most organizational structures and society today, it is more paradoxical. It is more of that pyramid instead of that. And that's, I get so upset because I came from biology, right? And came into business, and there's nothing scientific about business, right? It's the most unscientific thing. And that's where I get frustrated because it's like, yo, look out your window. That tree that I see right behind you, nature has already learned that we all have to work together and we have to embrace diversity, because otherwise we'll fail and we'll eat each other and it won't work. Nature's learned that. So something that's been around for a lot longer before you and I, and it's going to be a lot longer after you and I, has these lessons that we're failing to see. I have one question, then I would Tyler, it's all yours. But how did you drop that fear of rejection, that fear of approval, that fear of, how did you get comfortable? Because I hear someone that is not afraid, and that's what really has allowed you to step into this truth and really this empowering and passionate individual that's changing the lives of people, whether you know it or not, Dr. Myra.
Oh, wow. I don't know that I am uncomfortable. I don't know that I am comfortable. I continue to be uncomfortable. And I don't know if it's on purpose or by accident, but I find myself continuously in uncomfortable situations. I had a supervisor tell me one time, and this has stuck with me for years. She said to me that I had not begun to lean into my stretch. And I thought, wow, so I make sure on a regular basis that I am challenging myself in a way that I'm leaning into my stretch. And that's personal and professional. That's introducing weightlifting into my exercise routine. And I kick myself and mad because I can't even get through a 20-minute set. Then I take a month off instead of the 2 days that's recommended. And it's because I'm uncomfortable. It's because I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean I'm gonna give up. I'll just try again.
Love that. I love it. So you don't fear failure as final, right? It's just a lesson.
No,
If I
failure
ask
is
you
a
how
part
many
of,
times
yeah.
you failed, you're probably gonna say, I haven't. I
You
love when
know,
people say that too.
that's where the lessons live.
Yeah.
In that messy middle that most people consider failure, when it's like you're in the middle of something, right? You got to go through something to get on the other side. In a church I grew up with, it was, in order to have a testimony, you have to be tested, right? So that test is going to be messy. It's going to be hard. It's going to be ugly. But it's how I come through it. It's how I work through it, how I show up in the moment, how I recognize and frame what it is in the moment. That's where I
I'm reading
live.
Angelo right now, my 3-year-old, going on a bear hunt. And it's like, can't go over it, can't go under it, got to go through it, And then they're looking for a bear, but ultimately we're on this discovery, the self-discovery to find ourselves right in that cave. I think that kind of just speaks that so many people that are just not in tune with who they are, and a lot of people pretending right now, And I did it for a very long time, and you get exhausted after a while.
But Dr. Myra, I was going to ask you about a leadership question here that I've been really working on my subconscious lately. And I had some dreams about this and some experiences. I couldn't help anybody till I was good.
Yeah.
So as a leader, and this was all in a dream, I kid you not, I had a dream that this leader walked in and said, everybody raise your hand if you're in debt or have past bills paid, right? And he took care of everything. And I mean, these people went out like warriors after that because they didn't have anything left at home or in their like guilt, How do you keep it? I'm not saying every leader should do that, but I think it's very something to be mindful of. And maybe all I'm trying to ask is, how do you keep your team strong? Because y'all are helping some people that need some strength. Yeah. How do you keep your team strong, and how do you pick your team like that's coming in the door there?
Yeah. So at a macro level, again, like I mentioned, we annually have a staff gathering, and that's not something that's put up on the staff. That is an annual survey that goes out and say, hey guys, we're going to get together this year. What do you want to do? Here's the budget. Here's what we can do. What do you think? And we we being the leadership team, we'll give them one or two suggestions, but then there's always that blank for other. And we over the years, folks have come up with different things that they wanted to do a barbecue in the park or something different, but the consensus, and this is when, leadership research will say you don't survey your staff and then don't do anything with the survey results, right? So the survey results always drive what we do. And ultimately, folks want to go back to Seabreeze. They want to go back to the amusement park. So we go, okay, this is what we're going to do. So on that macro level, we're pouring into individuals, the staff's departments. And then on that individual level, I want to make sure that folks understand that their individual contributions are important equally across the board as we move towards our mission. So that could be a kind word. I send handwritten notes out to every staff member at the beginning of each month, birthday greetings, starting in January. And when I first started doing it, they would get a inspirational bookmark with a quote on it of some sort. I've since graduated to giving everybody a $5 Dunkin' Donut card because I think subconsciously I want to learn how to drink coffee. So I give everyone a Dunkin' Donuts card so they can get a cup of coffee, but with a handwritten birthday card. I do that every month. I do it faithfully so that they know their individual contributions are appreciated and seen.
Dude. That is awesome. Well, Dr. Myra, I think we're at the top of the hour here. Is there anything you want to tell our listeners?
This has been fun. This has been great. And I would be remiss if I didn't tell everyone and steer them to our website, ywcarochester.org, for exciting just highlights of the work that we're doing, the lives that we're touching, our impact in the community, and opportunities and ways that they can get involved.
Thank you. Thank you for your leadership. Thanks for your commitment to the community. Thanks for listening. And I love how you put it. It's not about me, it's about we. And I think if everybody else can start seeing a little bit more like that, I think we can really bring this community together and build something that we're all proud of. So I can't thank you enough so much for saying yes, for agreeing to be on this show and bestowing a lot of that great wisdom that you've learned throughout your career and your life, to just guys like Tyler and I and others that are kind of, no matter where they're at in their journey. I think there was a part within your message and your story today that will resonate no matter where in the journey that they are today.